the film festival. I also want to say thank you to Saigon Center and the Rumduol community for bringing all of us to Long Beach. I'm not just from Long Beach, but we're all here for this big event. To my left is Kichada Bao, an infant survivor of the Khmer regime, daughter of refugees, and feminist stay-at-home mom. Kichada is a poet and prose writer based in New York City. Her work weaves together grief, resilience, survivor's guilt, generational divide, wonder, and the everyday. Welcome. Next to Kichada is Sandra Pen, my colleague from Lowell. Born in a refugee camp in Thailand, she and her family resettled in Lowell, Massachusetts, which, by the way, is the second largest Cambodian community in the United States. Where she's very active in the literary arts community and the performing arts communities. Welcome. Sampoa Chun is a friend from the Bay Area. She's also a really good Zumba instructor, which she teaches in San Francisco. But born during the Khmer regime in Cambodia, Sampoa came with her family to the U.S. in 1982. Now a San Francisco Bay Area-based lawyer, Sampoa will share her work in the realm of detective fiction. In 2021, right here actually at the CTFF, I launched my book, which is Voices of a New Generation, Cambodian Americans in the Creative Arts. Thank you to Fresh and Kelly for giving me that platform. At the time, the book covers 15 different Cambodian American artists, from people who do martial arts, to filmmakers, to dancers, to visual artists. But the one thing that was missing is Cambodian American writers. And that's largely because I didn't know any. I really didn't know any other writers like me, Cambodian by blood but raised in the U.S., the 1.5 generation born in Cambodia or in the refugee camps but raised here, with little or no direct memory of either Cambodia or life under the Khmer Rouge, or second generation like myself, actually born in the U.S., and thus even further removed from that direct first-hand experience. To that point, I just want to emphasize that our title is Beyond Trauma Narratives, but in saying that, I am not at all trying to suggest that those narratives are not absolutely essential to the Cambodian story. We haven't, nor are we ever trying to move past them, but rather we're building upon them. Without books like Janet Keegan's When Broken Glass Floats, Gul Am's First They Killed My Father, but Guy Radner's In the Shadow of the Banyan Tree, we would not know the stories of our parents and grandparents who endured and survived the Rouge genocide. I personally grew up with a Khmer father who never ever talked about Cambodia, and without those writings, the writings of refugee survivors, I wouldn't have known what was the cause of his silence. How lives in Cambodia were completely disrupted and shattered, and how harrowing the journey to America was. And so I'm forever grateful to those authors for providing that insight. They're the foundation for not only my own writing, but for my academic work. But as a writer, I look to stories as a means of connection and belonging. There's an American poet by the name of Muriel Reiser who wrote, "The universe is made of stories, not of atoms." And I love that quote because it speaks to just how important our stories are, all of our stories. And something I try to instill in my students is that each and every one of them has a story to tell, and each and every one matters. And parallel to that, I know that it's also important that they see their stories reflected in the world around them. Representation matters. So in the past few years, I've been looking for these Khmer American authors, and I have found authors of children's books, I have found scientific writers, I have found prose writers and poets, and so I wanted to bring them here to share all of their work with you. Okay, so my first question, if you would, I'm just going to go down the line. Before we do the reading, I just want to ask each of the authors to address the importance of writing in your lives and what it has meant to you to meet other Khmer American writers.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here, and thank you, Christine, for inviting us. It's so wonderful to be here and to meet you.
there are just a lot of ways in which I have never fit in anywhere. And so on the page, you realize that you can make your own world and you can make your own belonging. And to be here on the stage with these amazing writers and to be a part of this festival with other incredible artists is really a dream and not any, like totally beyond my imagination, but also like so natural and right for this kind of event and these kinds of spaces to exist. And they only exist because we write, because we make art. We insist on being here, we insist on saying what we need to say, and knowing these spaces exist and knowing that we can create them is what sustains me and helps me do what I do.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining us and for participating in this event and being here, showing up for our discussion. To answer that question, Christina, I feel that writing for me has evolved over time. It really started as a way to express emotions coming from a really conservative culture where you weren't encouraged to, display emotion, whether you were angry, whether you were upset, whether you were happy. You had to do everything very quietly. And so the easiest way to do that for me was the writing. And then it shifted from emotional expression to wanting to share stories, not just about myself, but about my family. And from there, it transitioned to like a healing journey for me, if you will, and sharing my story and hearing other folks' stories and connecting within that realm of the literary arts. And I always said that if you write something down long enough, you'll eventually want to say it out loud. So there's a thing about writing ourselves into existence and then using that as a way to empower our voices and use that in other spaces, which led me to a lot of nonprofit and community work and advocacy work through the literary arts. And my work with the Cambodian American Literary Arts Association.
Hello, thank you guys all for coming and being a part of this. Christina and I were talking about being the person we needed when we were younger. I needed someone to tell me it was okay to escape my reality. That it didn't dishonor my family or the path we were on, but rather the beginning of the ability to dream of something different. I knew at an early age that I did not want to work in a donut shop. My mom worked 12 hours a day. She was never home. I saw her behind a donut counter, and I've seen her slouch over a sewing machine. That was my reality. But with a book, I remember going into the bathroom, because that was the only place you could be alone, and opening up a new book and getting lost. Forgetting all that I thought was unfair or whatever was wrong at the moment. It was just me and whatever adventure the book took me on. And then I found a journal. I could write my thoughts down, evaluate them, and move past all those emotions that come from those thoughts. Writing became a way to cope and a way to be creative. Creativity heals. Art heals.
Thank you so much, Holly. At this point, I'm going to have the audience go ahead and read, and we'll come back to questions afterwards. So, Jonathan, can we go ahead? And maybe we could save the audience questions to the end as well.
Okay, so this is sort of like a poem and essay. When Cambodia is far away. My father was once pulled out of an execution line. So the story goes, the one I've been eavesdropping on, my father's voice steadying the end family parties, any kind of get-together. I never asked how he stood on starving feet. Who put him there? Did he know who went before him? What was it like to wait to die and then not? It's not really my story. I used to sleep beside him when I was little. My storied father, his worn-out body like a corpse. I kept my limbs stiff, careful not to disturb him, and the night that seemed to bring no relief. During the day, I would watch him construct his American dream. Corporate job, house in the suburbs, graduate degrees, meticulous bricks in his imaginary wall, keeping us from trauma and torment. But on the morning of September 11th, I watched the towers collapse on a television screen in my dorm room and felt a distant and familiar ache. The day after, my professor brought our class cut pineapple, and we grieved together, its sharp sweetness heavy on our futile tongues, not knowing that in Cambodia, pineapple was code for spies. I never know what to say to my father, faithful convert, steadfast in his manifest destiny. I gave up his mother tongue for my own myth-making. I am the American he built from his own shattering. How far will I go to tell my own story? What wall could ever contain it? This poem was kind of a beginning, the first that was published, the first I read in public. I didn't really start writing seriously until Trump was elected the first time. I had held a complacent belief in the general goodness of most people. Then I saw how easily people would swallow any barely disguised racism or misogyny or xenophobia if it meant they could keep their comforts. How simple and nearly automatic a vote for tyranny would be. That shook me, and if those people wanted me to be quiet, I would not and could not comply. The thing is, once I started writing, I could not stop. A long Facebook post here, a poem for my children there, a manifesto, and then, without warning, Cambodia appeared in my writing. I showed this poem to my father after it was published. I watched his face while he read it. Then he leaned back on my lumpy couch and began to fill in the story that was the background noise of my entire childhood. He kept me up deep into the night. It was like he couldn't stop talking, even if he had wanted to. My father had learned that his cousin was deathly ill in another labor camp, so he snuck out to see him. Even though travel between villages was prohibited, he got caught and was taken to be punished. But along the way, the Khmer Rouge village leader took a liking to him, and as my father was spared. He would live, but his cousin would die alone. My father's voice went flat. I had been struck by the utter arbitrariness of survival, the hairline margin between death and its delay. My father believes he had been rewarded for being obedient and a good worker. A tender spot, best left alone, but my writing did open a space unimaginable before for us to access together this loaded and painful touchstone. Of the many narratives that fill and feed the fable of the American dream, my family story seems particularly palatable. Many people really eat it up. My mother herself relishes the tale of our escape from Cambodia, how my father had to flee before I was born, so she brought me into the world seemingly fatherless. She tells people I never cried, which is why she didn't leave me there in the jungle, like other babies have been. The stuff of legend, right? Was my survival due to extraordinary silence? Was I somehow innately wise to the dangers? Was I destined to be an American? It's a believable myth. I was a clever child, precocious even. I always knew what grown-ups wanted to hear or not hear. But after I had my own children, I realized that my mother was wrong. There can be no superheroes made out of this story. Yes, I am here because of her. My mother skirted landmines with me wrapped to her body. Her heartbeat in my ear, her milk were what kept me quiet. She held on to me and moved instinctively forward into an unwritten future, like so many other mothers before and after her. But I don't know and can't know why those other babies were abandoned, what horrors their mothers and fathers faced and lived through and feared so much that they might leave their children behind. The Khmer Rouge, like all authoritarian regimes, obliterated all sense of order, all rightness, all meaning in the world. What justice is there in judging other people's survival methods? In the refugee camp, my mother found my father only by chance. And when I met him for the first time, I refused to go to him and wailed. I am here now writing because I won't be reduced to a mere human face on an unbelievable story that assuages this country's guilt. I write because I have my own things to say. I know our gaze, our field of vision can widen to see not just the quiet baby, but the desperate nursing mother. Not just the resilient survivors, but the torn, exposed roots that still need tending. Not just the betrayals of humanity, but our own ease and complicity in them. I write because shining a light in this precarious world will necessarily cast a matching shadow, and we must be willing to look at all of it, because we are writing our own future into existence. We are our own manifest destiny.
Sandra, before you start, maybe you can say a little bit about what CLA is.
Oh, sure. So I became involved with CLA, which is CAMA, stands for the Cambodian American Literary Arts Association. We're a nonprofit organization based in Lowell, but our goal is to actually reach writers across the diaspora around the globe, Cambodian diaspora, and to uplift both emerging and established writers and their work, and to also collect stories from our communities to create an archive for future generations. So each year, CLA publishes an annual zine, which I have right here with me. This is our second edition that we were able to actually publish and print our first edition because of funding, and we're totally like a non-profit volunteer organization. Any money that comes in goes right back out into programming for the community and into creating our annual zine. So this was the first thing that we were able to publish in print and be able to disseminate and distribute to the community. And every year that we publish a zine, we identify a theme, put out a call up for submissions. So if you are interested in submitting, please, after today's session, I'll have some information on how you can reply and keep updated on the current events and programs that we have going on. So first, I have a couple pieces a few pieces I want to share that kind of outline what I'm talking about, like the evolution of my writing and how it came to be. This particular piece is called Familial Things. It's written really about, me longing for a big family, and like my family, it was just my mom and dad and my brother and my sister, and no aunts, no uncles and cousins, and so there was a struggle with seeing, the images produced by Hollywood and by the media about how families should be, and me feeling like there was a missing piece in that for me. So here it goes. In my youth, I constantly sought surrogates to complete the mental image of what I thought would be a family. On and off did their best to create a circle of support for themselves by reconnecting with people they knew from their villages back in Cambodia, and who like themselves resettled in Lowell, Massachusetts. These people became my aunts and uncles, and their children, my cousins. I was grateful for the community my parents built around me. The city of Lowell, a small borough in the state of Massachusetts, became my home, and the Cambodian community within it, my family. But I still couldn't help feeling there was something missing. Throughout my childhood, Ba and Ma spoke of their family often. My favorite stories were the ones Ma would tell about Ye and Ba, my grandparents. I enjoyed hearing Ma tell me about her mischievous adventures and how Ye and Ba dealt with her. She told me how they would make veil threats of corporal punishment, but that their gentle nature and temperament would always prevail. It ultimately proved to her how much they would truly love their children. I would stare at the pictures of Ye and Ba's wrinkled faces and envision the kindness and wisdom behind their eyes. Ma was not able to return to Cambodia before Ye passed. She flew out to Cambodia for the funeral after 15 years of being separated from her home and her family. She was able to see Ba before he passed. He passed not too long after her visit. I couldn't help but feel he died due in part to a broken heart. And I did not mourn for him or Ye in the way I felt I should have for people who were and are such a huge part of my identity. But I only knew them through my stories, through letters sent in red and white striped envelopes laden with international postage stamps and written in a language I could not read. And through their voices I could only hear on pre-recorded cassette tapes and in static noises or a phone signal stretched tight across the oceans, worlds away. I don't think my siblings or I could ever fully understand the grief Ma bore not being able to perform her duty as a daughter. That is to care for Ye and Ba in their old age, to be by their side and be their strength as they grew weak. She never could have guessed how much I mourned that with her. I was sad for her and sad for myself. Sad at the loss of a grandmother's love I could never have, and the soulful kindness of grandfather I longed to know. I felt her anguish and wanted to take it all away, but little did I know I was locking bits and pieces of it away within the walls of my heart, and there would be more sadness to come. I learned then that when we love someone, we often become the keeper of their sorrows. Thank you. The second story that I'm sharing really was written during COVID. There was a lot of folks struggling during COVID, and especially folks that were unhoused and that were living on the streets and were not able to access resources on medical care. And there was a project on this, someone had approached me to ask me to write a story. So I wrote this piece and I shared it in two different spaces. One within, in conjunction with an art project in one of the galleries in Lowell. And the second was for a special edition of the still housing, which we call the monsoon. Because the monsoon is like a certain season and time the rains come heavily into Cambodia, and we rely on that for their agriculture and crops. So the title of this piece is Haven. So I hope you mentioned it. It's Sunday and all is quiet in my house, save for the water boiling softly in the pot and trickling from the faucet as I wash and cut vegetables in preparation for dinner. I am utterly cognizant of the small moment of peace. I try to take it all in, hold it for as long as I can, grateful for the respite and the haven that is my home. I realize if I step outside, the madness of the world might consume me. The world is battling a viral pandemic, but more troubling and concerning is the state of the country I claim as my own, and the insecurity that lies at the root of it all. Millions are unemployed, uncertain of their futures, and political discourse and chaos are erupting all around. Social media and news headlines are flooded with stories of people being persecuted and executed on the streets. All this is taking place in the land of the free, home of the brave, operating under a democracy that forces us to choose between the lesser of two evils, where some folks believe things like the pandemic and climate change are hoaxes created by the government or some powerful covert entity meant to deprive them of their civil liberties. The quiet moment, my thoughts are interrupted as my son enters the kitchen, kisses my fork, and asks, "What's for dinner?" I tell him I'm making sarao, one of his favorite Khmer soups, snap of cabbage and pork and light broth. A goofy smile lights up his face. He is the picky eater in our little tribe, and trying to make dishes that he and his three sisters can agree on is a difficult feat to accomplish. But it seems I hit the mark this time around. "I'm hungry now, but I'll wait for the soup," he says, with a smile still on his face. I tell him he can have a snack while he waits for dinner. He rustles through the cupboards, grabs some golden Oreos, and heads towards the living room. As I watch him walk away, I think to myself how thankful I am he doesn't look his age. He's 19 with a slight build and a baby face. Maybe because of these features, others will not see him as a threat. I mean, Mike Brown was only a year younger than him when he was shot by police. I tell myself, maybe it was because Mike was just a bigger kid. Maybe it was his identities him a threat. Maybe that's why they shot him. Bigger kid or not, he was a kid, nonetheless. The maybes keep coming as I try to justify it all in my head, try to make myself feel better, keep my worries at bay, and be able to sleep at night. I often think about how my son sees himself as Cambodian first and Black second. He feels closer to his Cambodian roots from being close with me and my family. And although I see his Cambodian identity, the world will see him as a young Black man. And to be a young Black man in America is to live in suspended fear. Fear that someone will misconstrue actions or intentions and kill you over misconceptions. His behavior will be scrutinized in every way imaginable. He will be labeled suspect because his skin fits a general skin tone for synonymous with criminality. I hope instead they will see his inner goodness, his boyish charms. He's a good boy, but to be a good boy, Black boy is an oxymoron to some, and I'm not able to protect him from that. I try to brush these thoughts out of my mind and turn my attention back to dinner. I am, he is, we are safe in our haven. I focus instead on the blessings. My family and I are healthy. My parents are right downstairs. I can continue to care for them even if we have to social distance. I'm getting paid. I'm working from home. My children are close to me, all under one roof. Yet even with these things, I simply can't help the racing thoughts. They hit me like flashes of light, transitioning into free-flowing thoughts of what ifs, if onlys. I cannot stop them as they stream into the vast subconscious planes of possibilities. I finish cooking dinner and we all sit down and eat. I scroll through Facebook mindlessly, ingesting the ambiguous news that leaves me full of nauseating uncertainty. I'm afraid of how these things will affect those I love most. I'm afraid of standing solid in my resolve to do something, anything, to make a difference, to create change, to hold on to optimism, and be the catalyst that can hopefully alter the reality of those around me. Someone once told me perception is reality. What we perceive as reality is a complex combination of our identities, our experiences, what we love, and what we're afraid of. Who are we to challenge someone else's reality? Who are we to say what we would say or do in their shoes? Who are they to invalidate me, my experience, who and what I am, all the things that I love? Again, I push nagging questions away and repeat. I am, he is, and we are safe in our haven. Safe at least until the world comes pounding on our door and we have no choice but to answer.
I just want to introduce some Hua by saying that I didn't know you were a writer. I know you as a lawyer. And the fact that you are writing outside of the boundaries of what we might expect of Cambodian American writers and remember their history, and what definitely wanted you to be here. So please go ahead.
1. Page 4. Page 1, page 4. And page 7, if you guys want to follow along. It goes better with a waffle. Tuesday. It was puzzling. We were on our way to a botanical garden while Kim was lying in a hospital room fighting for her life. The doctors did what they could to counteract the arsenic poisoning, but it was unclear if Kim would survive. We were all at the hospital, desperately waiting for Kim to come out of her coma. The hospital staff told us that there was nothing we could do to help her, and that it would be best if we left the hospital for a little while. We still had 4 days left on our Hawaiian vacation, and doing anything was better than feeling helpless and hopeless in a hospital room, waiting for Kim to wake up. Page 4. I remember the first time I made pan and coconut waffles for Lily, Kim, and Mary. We were all at Kim's house. I was learning how to cook foods from my childhood and eating pan and coconut waffles were one of my favorite memories. Pandan is known as the Southeast Asian vanilla. I love how the aroma of pandan, its flavoring extracted by boiling the leaves in water, fills a room with goodness. After begging continuously, my older sister Rainey finally gave me her recipe with the caveat that I was not allowed to share it with anyone or she would kill me. I took her threat seriously. I knew she probably wasn't going to kill me, but it would likely give her a reason to deny the other recipes. Rainey is an amazing cook. I wanted to do her pan and coconut waffle recipe and my memories justice. I also wanted Kim, Lily, and Mary to like the waffles as much as I did. There I was in the middle of Kim's kitchen with my rotating waffle iron, trying not to make a mess of the batter. Lily, Kim, and Mary were sitting in the dining room table talking. I thought about how odd, yet natural, it was that I was making pan and coconut waffles for them. I set up a joke by saying, so a crazy person walks into a dance class. Without missing a beat, Kim answered and met her tribe. This group wasn't just people who exercised together, we were a tribe. Kim's answer was just as true for me as it was for her. It was probably true for Lily and Mary too. It felt natural to make pan and coconut waffles for my tribe. Page 7. Who in the group was capable of murder? Mary and Terry, definitely. Especially since they both intimidated me. Mary was retired but had been an auditor for a big company in Detroit, Michigan. There was a frightening authority when she told you what to do. Terry was small and scary, a lethal combination. It took years for me to win her favor. I'm still not entirely sure she likes me. I don't know if Tito is capable of murder. However, it was more believable with the added motivation from his wife, Terry. Lily was capable of murder. Lily's temper just ran hot. Doug, I didn't know Doug well enough to conclude if he was capable of murder. From the conversation I overheard in the garden, he didn't put the arsenic in Kim's drinks. But I couldn't really be sure of anyone. Everyone was capable of murder if pushed enough. The question is, which one of us was pushed enough to hurt Kim? Thank you.
sorry. Okay, one of the reasons I wanted to bring these three wonderful ladies together is because they're from different parts of the country. So Sam is from the San Francisco Bay Area, I'm originally from San Diego, I believe. And, and Sandra is from Lowell, Massachusetts, and Fichanda is from New York. So what I want to ask is, and thank you Long Beach for being so welcoming to all of us. What part of your story or your community's story do you wish more people knew about?
Well, I guess what I want folks to know is that, Asian Americans, specifically Cambodians and Cambodian Americans, are not a monolith, right? And we are not just the Khmer Rouge. We talk about beyond trauma narratives. It's not saying that these things didn't happen or they're not important, and that the folks that lost their lives during that time shouldn't be memorialized or put into the pieces of art and literature that we create now. But there's more to us, and the communities that we built, like the one here in Long Beach, or the one that I have back home in Lowell, which allows us to kind of hold on to those pieces of our identity, our language, our food, our traditions, creating families where there was loss, like filling in those pieces for one another, and bringing us all together. So being here in Long Beach is kind of funny because it feels like it's a home away from home. Because I see just so many Khmer people as I see here as I do in Lowell, and it's just been amazing. And I used to joke around when I wanted to come out and I said, I really want to see if the Khmer food was better on the West Coast or on the East Coast. It's not a competition. It's not a competition. So yeah, I think it's just making sure that folks know how nuanced we all are, and even though our stories share similar pieces or components, that each story is really unique. And so I encourage everybody to please share your story with us, because we want to hear it. I want to hear it. And I was joking around, if you're not comfortable sharing with anybody else, please share it with me. I'm not like a harsh critic or anything like that, so please.
I grew up in Northern Virginia, outside of Washington, D.C. So I think that maybe I would want people to know that not every Cambodian American person knows that Cambodians make donuts. I actually did not know that. I had no idea that that was a thing, because in Virginia, nobody owns donut shops. And I really and it's funny you say that, feeling like Long Beach is kind of like home because you're seeing so many Khmer people. But I grew up in Virginia where the only Khmer people were my own family, more or less. And now I'm in New York and there's more Khmer people there, but there's so many people in New York. You do kind of hear sometimes people speaking in Khmer on the street and stuff, but it's just sort of a part of the bigger New York City thing. And yeah, basically, I'm still Khmer. No, I don't know anybody owns it.
Can you repeat the question?
What is it about your community, meaning the Khmer community, that you would like people to know that they maybe don't know?
That they need to tell their story to anyone that will listen to, and it's heartbreaking for me to know that we have a generation that's gonna pass with the stories they hold in their hearts. I'm a journalist by training, and independent journalism barely exists. It's up to us to tell our story. It's up to us to describe what our parents went through. And every experience that you go through, you might not understand what you were supposed to learn at that moment as you go through it, but I've experienced, when I go through my journal entries and look back, I'm able to say, that's why I went through that. That's what I needed to learn. So you have to write. You have to figure a way to heal. You have to make art. Thank you.
We had discussed earlier about how writing can serve as healing, or part of healing, but what has been, or what is the most difficult part of writing for you?
me, it's actually finishing a piece of work. You know, I have my phone here, like tons of like streams of thoughts, and I jot it down quickly. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna build on that later. And then I touch it, and then go back to it, and some of it might never be completed. And it's funny because I say it's a problem, but being around other artists and having conversations, kind of like letting your work sit for a little bit sometimes kind of helps it. So when you go back on it, because tapping back into that stream of thought can be difficult, but if you go through certain things and you come back to it, kind of gives you a different perspective and gives you something different to add onto it. So yeah, I have pieces of work that have yet to be accomplished, and fully finished, but even the pieces of work that I say I'm done with or finished, I always go back and revise them. I can't help myself. There's always a way that I can word it better, be more descriptive, add different components to it. So I guess finishing the work is tough.
I think that for me it is being caring with my work and giving it care when I have so many other things that I have to care about and do. And that also sort of means kind of not letting sort of outside forces or concerns, like whether or not it get published, whether or not anyone can hear it, whether or not it's quote unquote good, letting sort of those things fall away, because ultimately, my work is good. Ultimately, like in and of itself, to make art is good and valid and worth my time. And there's just so many sort of voices or pressures to prove yourself or be productive in these specific kind of ways that really are just serving, who you have to really question, like, what is that narrative serving? Like, what am I contributing to this, scarcity mindset? And so it's really like holding on to care while I'm writing.
It's definitely time and compassion for your process. I don't feel like we grew up in San Diego, and my mom said, don't worry about what happened in the past. You're American now. So I tried to be American. And when I was with Cambodians, I didn't feel Cambodian either. So I was in this place where am I? Where's my story? How do I tell it? And I was at the Cambodian American Studies Conference in the end of January, early February this year. I thought, if I don't know how to tell my story, let's see how the educators are teaching California students. And I heard Monica So, that lady right up here. She spoke at the event, and she said, we deserve a story more than genocide. And I was all like, I can talk about something else? And I saw, I met Trin Mai. She's a local artist. And I asked her, she's amazing. I asked her, I said, how do you not get impatient with yourself when your product, your art is just laying there waiting for you to come back to it? And she said, I give myself time for quiet contemplation. And that's how I complete my stuff. That's how sometimes I can't go back to it right away, but that's how I'm able to go back to it, because I give myself the space to do that. And she told me that in February. This was finished in April. So it's trying to figure it out. Trying to figure it out along the way. and hoping that we're resilient. Did you guys know that? Just making sure you stay focused in what's in your heart, your story that needs to be told, regardless of what anybody else says.
I think we're going to ask a question from the audience, if anyone would like to ask something. And I can't really see you, so raise your hand up high if you want to ask a question. Oh, you're just the mic guy.
I'm just the mic guy, yeah. You got the other one, so yeah. Anybody have a question? Yeah.
First of all, Senator, hi. Senator, I go way back from Low Massachusetts, so thank you. So good to see you here. This is not a question. This is more of a thank you and acknowledgement of your work. Thank you so much for being generational trauma cycle breakers. Thank you so much for being strong Khmer American woman on the stage. And I say this from my deep soul and heart because I have 3 young, beautiful daughters that I would love for them to meet you someday as their potential role models. You know, so thank you so much. That's all I want to say. I just want to say thank you for your work. It's really hard to share our stories, but when you are in front of other people sharing our stories, it goes beyond the stage. It's going to be heard worldwide. So thank you so much.
I think I can do mine without a microphone.
You got it.
Hi, ladies. My name is Anthony Amay. I'm an academic counselor in the city of Torrance for the state of California. I know a little bit about what it's like to have generational trauma from relatives, elders, ancestors who have experienced it, unknowingly passed it down to us. Having either of you spoken about it in your writing, would you be brave enough at some point to talk about not the trauma that we in this generation have experienced, but the trauma that we were parented by because of the things that happened to our elders and ancestors?
Thank you for your question. Anthony, and coming from, so far. I honestly, I do talk about it. I haven't actually put it in writing, if you will, but I've shared it in a lot of different spaces, both like community check-ins, spoken word poetry spaces. So I have not had published any of that work. Part of it is because I do feel a little bit of guilt and, sharing some of those stories because it doesn't necessarily paint some of the people that I really love and have come to understand and give some patience and grace to and forgiven for some of the things that happened when I was younger too. So I feel like it's like not like, I don't know, I just struggle with that feeling of like, putting them on the spot or painting them in a bad light.
We need to hear it.
It will. I'm working through different writing methods and telling the stories so that I can bring it in a way that I feel will still be respectful, especially to folks like my parents who've already gone through so much. And I wanted it to be something that they could be proud of and that, that they can reflect back on that story and understand how much to talk at the end of it, right? Even though it was like really difficult to go through, at the end of it, our relationship has gotten stronger at this point, and eventually it will come out, and once I figure out the best way to tell it,
I think that before you make the art, you have to do the work. And I do talk a lot, in my own work, and there are definitely things out there that I am hoping that my parents don't ever read, and which is fine because they don't really pay attention to what I do. And I think that, I don't think that art is therapy or is a replacement for therapy. So I don't necessarily think that a poem or a story is, that vehicle for working through the trauma that we we all have gone through. But I think that there is a lot of value in, after you've done that internal work with yourself on the things that, you just kind of, sometimes you just have to accept that, like, you were just raised by traumatized people. And, I mean, you do have, I mean, I can't change that. But as I've gotten older and had, have done this work, I'm able to write about it in a way that is art, that is, I don't mean to say like beautiful or pretty, or, but in a way that is true. And so that is something I think that is really important in communities that have experienced this kind of generational trauma, is artists being able to open up that space for that truth to exist and to transform into whatever it needs to transform into. I mean, I don't know how to answer this.
I'm pretty sensitive. I cry at the drop of a hat. So writing about the horrors, when I went to visit Cambodia, I didn't go to the prison because I knew I just cried. So writing that story, my parents' trauma, isn't something I can do right now, and maybe something I won't be able to do. But a couple of years ago, for 2 to 3 hours a week, I got my mom's story down and just talked to her and let her tell me while I typed it up. So and I'm not sure what to do with that work yet. I think it's going to become a book, but I'm not sure. It's kind of hard because you can't verify what she says.
Yes. Not a story.
But I have it. It's about 300 pages, and it's in a manila envelope, and my mom keeps a copy of it.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. The authors are going to be here for a little while, or out in the foyer, and they have some of their work. Some of you have picked up some was already, but there are also some zines from Collab and a couple copies of my book. I just wanted to say thank you so much for being